I am resident of Collinwood for YouTube, Joel Sands. That is my buddy Alan Gallant. That is my buddy Pattrick McCray. We are here to review the movie Wrong is Right, starring Sean Connery. Henry Silva is here, and a lot of fun, too.
The greatest B-movie cast
It's incredible.
possible.
It's incredible, this cast.
Yeah.
It really is.
Catherine Ross in a throwaway part.
Yes.
She gets killed almost instantly. Spoiler alert.
John Saxon.
Rosalind Cash, Leslie Nielsen in a straight part.
Yes, Terry Garr.
Robert Conrad with that great mustache.
Yeah, and Robert Conrad probably thinks it's a straight role when he was doing it.
Sure he did. Sure he did.
I'm surprised he didn't tape batteries to his shoulders. One of the scenes, but you also have, you've got some people with a little bit of, gravity. You've got Hardy Kruger in there as well, and he is
Dean Stockwell.
Pretty significant. Dean Stockwell's role's reasonably significant. And then you've got George Grizzard, theater star extraordinaire, playing the president.
Yeah.
So it's really an interesting cast.
G.D. Spradlin.
Myron Atwick, who is fantastic character actor.
A young Jennifer Jason Leigh is in this movie.
Yep,
too.
at the very beginning.
The one scene. Yeah.
And she's great, even in that. I mean, she's just terrific, managing to play bland and sociopathic, but captivating.
Right. She's on the launch pad for greater things. Definitely.
Terrific actress.
Yep.
What a cast. You guys talked about that a bit.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very fun action comedy, and a little more comedy than action, but the action is there to be had. When did you guys first see this movie, Alan?
I saw it 2 days ago for the first time. And enjoyed it thoroughly, even though it has some disjoint in it. It's also very reminiscent of its period, which is it's reflecting back on the late 70s to early 80s. The whole Iran hostage thing had just happened a few years before, so there was a great deal of that sort of thing. Of course, any of these kind of movies, you're going to lampoon this kind of political thriller. You're going to throw a nuclear bomb in there somewhere, being carried around in a steel case. And so they have two of them in this movie.
The book,
the
book that it's based on is much more focused on passenger airplanes being weaponized and used against the United States.
Yeah.
And the book was republished in 2008.
Yeah.
As prophetic, and it was.
Yes. Absolutely.
It really, really, really was. I mean, such shades of the Biden administration, certainly.
Yes.
Down to her becoming president.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly shades of 9/11.
And the Carter administration, the whole thing.
Yes.
I mean, there's a bunch of stuff in there. I mean, it's the nascent terrorism in the Middle East problem.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, too, the Twin Towers, prior to 9/11, there was a terrorist attack in the 90s on them. There was a car bombing. Yeah.
Yes,
car bombing.
in the basement.
Yep. With this is movie made in the 80s. This is well before that.
Yes.
Sean Connery, this movie is just a lot of fun to watch. I love how in the end he just pulls off the wig.
Sure.
Oh yeah,
that's a great moment.
It's totally perfect. It's like I almost applauded when I saw that. It's like I like that, Sean. You're not vain about that shit at all. Not at all.
Not at all. Which I really appreciated. There's Val. Now she's getting into the act. The movie is You can't even see me at this point. It's just a wall of brown. Come on, Val.
Yeah.
Will you?
You really need to shave, Patrick.
Yeah, I know. Come on, Val. Will you? Come on. She's the good one too. That's
She seems to be pretty sweet. She's slow moving.
Oh, she's great. Val's a real lady. She's terrific. Anyway, that's besides the point. The movie is a mess in a lot of ways. It's got about 30 million plots all going in different directions. It's a movie I really love. I cannot tell you what's going on in it. Many places I'm very confused by it, but I just surrendered to it. I just sort of let it spool in front of me. And Connery gets to do some real he gets to play a character he never gets to play otherwise, which is someone with strong ideological passions and beliefs, and has some network like speeches about the nature of the media that you're not expecting to see from him. And I think it was probably he was one of the producers of the film. Must have been really refreshing for him to play this kind of part.
Oh, I would think so. I mean, it's also, I mean, it is a commentary on where that kind of media was headed too.
Yes, it is.
It's where the media becomes the story or influences the story, and there becomes a blurring of the line of journalism as opposed to self-reportage. Where, like I say, you become part of the story. You're the one actually sort of helping to move things along, which he does from the very onset. I'm friends with the king, and from there it just goes downhill from there in terms of all that, and he knows Hardy Kruger, who's he's an arms dealer and does all this other stuff. So he's influencing world events at the same time he's like purporting to report on them.
Yeah.
So that I thought that was interesting and also prescient. Prophetic, if you will, because there is an element of that's been happening ever since.
In terms of its etymology, I've been trying to figure out what was the first really successful political paranoia comedy thriller that, was it this, or had there been antecedents?
I'm trying to think of. I'm sure there was something that had elements of this in it.
But my father suggested Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah, Dr. Strangelove is the one I would say.
Yeah, and that's definitely it's definitely a geopolitical military satire. I mean, it's got all of those because
the
of
Candidate.
Robert
Redford, The Candidate.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's definitely something there.
Because I think of the films that sort of, followed it. I think probably the most successful of them being Wag the Dog.
Yeah.
Burn After Reading.
Yeah. That film is absurdist, but it's also extremely bleak.
Oh yeah.
And
then Sale of the Century is the one that really occurs to me, which is the William Friedkin movie with Chevy Chase as an arms dealer.
Oh yeah,
and Gregory Hines and Sigourney Weaver is a terrific cast, and it's Chevy Chase is maybe at his least Chevy Chaseian in it. Mm-hmm. Friedkin has a strong hand on him,
and probably flattered him into playing it as straight as possible.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, he probably did, saying this is your chance to, and that kind of thing, because God knows Chevy Chase needs to be flattered.
He does. Yes, he does. Chevy Chase is actually someone we talk about a lot. Yeah. I don't know if you noticed, but he comes up a lot in our conversations. Uh-huh. And I have never, or I've rarely seen such an incredible talent, a real talent, undone so consistently by his own personality.
Yeah, and a lot of it's hubris, and some of it's just cantankerousness. And, there is an ego there's healthy ego, and then there's not so healthy ego, and I think a lot of times, and he even jokes about it, but it's not really a joke in terms of he doesn't really respect other people very
No.
much.
I think his philosophy is if I joke about it, I can keep getting away with it.
Away with it, yeah. But he really seems to disrespect humanity in general.
He does. He even walked off of Community,
Yeah.
which was his last chance, really at doing something, solid and respectable. It's a show I really like. I like him in it.
Yeah.
It's funny how they have written him on that show. This is way off the subject now, but they've written him on the show as kind of a parody of himself. And regarded with general contempt by the other characters on the show.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting show. It is really underrated.
It is, and I think that was at a point. That was a tipping point for him. I think he was going through a lot of personal stuff at that point, and fiction was sort of mirroring reality, maybe a little too much at a certain point for him. So I'll give him that, but I also think that when he decided to leave that show, a lot of people just
that was it. It's like, okay, good. Now we can have fun at work.
Yeah.
Chevy Chase, I would say he's a guy who gets in his own way a lot.
Oh, he does. And he gets in everybody else's way, too.
I mean, we forget that, there was a point in the 70s, mid-70s, that he was looked at as being groomed to replace Carson.
Oh yeah, he was considered well, for one thing, he was a good writer, which was the basis for everything at that point. He'd had an interesting and spotty career before that, though. He'd been in a band that actually had cut a record in the 60s, and kind of floated around as a writer for quite a while.
Wrote for Mad Magazine.
Yeah, and then they put him on the air on Saturday Night Live because they needed another body, and they figured, well, he's writing this stuff. Why not have him do some of it, And it turned out good and ill,
I don't think anyone has made more of one single season on that show than Chevy Chase did.
No, he made a film career and a television career out of it, and and even being as difficult as he was, he did. So even as difficult as he was, that his talent outed for a long, long time. It may do it again. He may not be done. So
he may not. I just watched Foul Play the other night. Not as good as I remembered it, but he's good.
Yeah.
Well, let's get back on the topic.
Sure.
Henry Silva, I was pleasantly surprised by his character because usually Henry Silva was like playing a drug lord, and here he's playing a terrorist that is somewhat funny.
Henry Silva is a very funny man.
He is, and he's so terribly underrated as an actor. His range was much more than people ever gave him credit for, and that includes producers and directors, I think, in a lot of cases.
Yeah,
because he did typically play these cold-blooded, crazy assassins and various roles like that. Although Sinatra was a personal friend of his, and he would cast him in some of his movies. In particular, he cast him in Ocean's 11. And he's not a psychopath in that movie at all. He's one of the guys.
He's wonderful in Manchurian Candidate also.
He is. Yep. He had an incredibly long career. His career was like 55, 60 years. I mean, he was,
But it helped that he never aged.
Yeah, his face kind of like froze in time there at some point. I don't know if he had a little help with that or not. Doesn't matter really, but
he is, speaking of playing a villain like this, he is a high point in a movie that desperately needs them, which is Megaforce. He's the bad guy in Megaforce, kind of playing a more exaggerated version of this character who gets along really well with the hero.
Yeah.
He and Barry Bostwick almost buddy around at various points.
Yeah.
And in a movie that's just a god awful mess. Jewel, if you've never seen it, you need to see Megaforce. Hal Needham's science fiction espionage action epic, which I think was a real precursor to what Hasbro did in the 80s with G.I. Joe.
Oh, yeah.
About a year later, they unrolled the G.I. Joe line, and it had a lot of similarities to Megaforce.
Mm-hmm.
It's a rotten film, almost unwatchable, but Henry Silva's terrific in it, and so is Barry Bostwick.
Yeah.
It's a terrible film filled with interesting actors, including Persis Kambata.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
With hair, because she did have hair actually almost all the time.
Yeah.
Just not in Star Trek the movie. I'll tell you one of the movies that really, where Silver really creeped me out was Sharky's Machine, because he plays a drug addict, psychopath, hitman kind of guy, and he is really committed to that character, no pun intended, and he's chilling in that role. And the camera work and everything in it and the lighting and everything that's on him contributes mightily to that aura that he's
that
given.
That was in a good period for Burt. He was making he wasn't making as much crap as he was making good movies. I mean, he's made this, he made Best Friends, he made Man Who Loved Women.
Yeah. It wasn't one of his chum periods, although some of the movies didn't do well at the box office, even though they were better than they were made out to be, I think.
Yes, they were. City Heat.
Yeah.
He made with Clint Eastwood. It's a good movie.
Yeah, fantastic.
Stick.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I go with him, I go all the way back to Dan August. I remember watching that on TV.
Oh, sure.
But and I loved when he started using he started building his company of actors in the early 70s with people like Jerry Reed, and had him in Gator as the villain, and then had him as the sidekick, of course, in the Bandit movies. But
good Jerry Reed movie. Now we're going way off field, but that's okay. It's not necessarily a great movie overall, but it falls in the wrong is right category as being a very uncomfortable comedy, and that's Survivors with Robin Williams and Walter Matthau.
Oh my God, I haven't even seen this. I've got to go look this up.
He plays a I think maybe an assassin, but who also moonlights as just an armed robber. You could not get away with it now at all.
Oh, okay.
But he wears a sort of a pantyhose mask, and speaks in an AAVE accent to confuse everyone, so they think he's black.
Sure.
And
not since Tropic Thunder have we been able to get away with that.
Yeah, Tropic Thunder.
Sort of.
Yeah, good movie.
Yes.
He's not a racist character, but he's using the racism of other characters to get away with being with stealing stuff and getting away with stuff, because they're all amazed when they pull the mask off
and find out
he's white.
Yeah.
Well, another movie with Robin Williams that's sort of dark is Toys, if you've ever seen it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's dark comedy.
It is.
Yes, it is. A Barry Levinson movie, I think.
Yeah. An interesting cast, too, in it. But with Henry Silva, he was also in Code of Silence. He was the villain in that with Chuck Norris.
Yes.
And he was also the villain. He did play a sort of heroin dealer with that in Above the Law that starred Steven Seagal.
I think he used to pal around with John Saxon too back.
I think so.
Yeah.
And Saxon,
when they're both doing a lot of television.
Saxon's great in this.
Yeah,
it's just a good, straight, intense part without a monster or time travel or something like that, and it's kind of nice to see him.
I find it funny that they got John Saxon to do Enter the Dragon by telling him he was the star.
You're the dragon, John.
That's right.
They enter you. I don't know how I feel about that. Well, just part your hair and show up.
It'll all work out.
It'll all work out.
John
my
Saxon,
hairline, I really worried for a long time when I
keep in mind
reached the John
too,
Saxon stage.
Yeah.
Saxon is the cop in the original Black Christmas. So.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, and Saxon did every television show in the 70s, I think, or at least all the dramas. I mean, he was on. I remember he was another Bionic Man on the $6 Million Man.
He was Maskatron. I think he was the robot.
Yes, he was. That's right. It turns out that he's not the Bionic Man. That he's a total robot. But he's as strong as Steve Austin and all those sort of things. So that was kind of fun. And he was on like a ton of detective and police procedurals in the 70s.
Gene Roddenberry cast him, I think, twice in some of his Dylan Hunt TV movies, Planet Earth and Genesis 2.
Mm-hmm.
And he got Alex Cord for one of them, but I think Saxon was in the other ones.
Yeah. Oh, Alex Cord, that's right. Alex Cord was in a lot of those sci-fi type movies for a while, wearing those polyester jumpsuit things. He was kind of, and of course, John Saxon was doing the same thing for a while.
I think Saxon and Cord owned their own polyester jumpsuits, and they would show up with them into the auditions, and it's okay, good. That's a costume we don't have to pay for.
Yeah, really.
John brings his own futuristic wardrobe with him wherever he goes.
Yeah. Beige, gold, or maybe blue.
In a weird about way, is Saxon, because he's sort of playing a CIA hitman. Is he in a way playing a Bond type of character? You think?
Yeah,
a little bit. I think he's a little. I mean, he certainly has some of the sort of is he or isn't he kind of attitude of like a 007 character. But
a character I could have seen in a Bond film.
Yes,
especially a 70s.
Yeah.
Pre Spy Love Me,
right?
Where they kind of upped everything again. They'd
be the guy that you'd for 3/4 of the film you'd go, is he with us or is he against us? Kind of.
And of course, again, he's going to be a bad guy.
Yeah.
I think the most fun thing about this film, you guys talked about how like there's a lot of plots going on at once. The chaotic plot thing going on is what makes this movie great. It's what makes this movie a lot of fun.
It's the state of the world, and it's the view. It's the worldview at the time, at this time, and it's been the worldview at various times since that it's global chaos.
Yeah,
happening, and it's as a satire, of course, it's poking your brain in places that need to be poked in terms of what's happening in the world. But it does it in a way that's crazily absurd and confusing and humorous at times, so that you can be as confused as I think they want you to be. I mean, one of the things you take away from this, other than these sort of ideas of Middle East terrorism is over here, and media manipulation is over here, and this CIA cynicism is over here, and presidential politics, which are becoming disconnected from what we were taught in school and are becoming much more sort of Machiavellian, or over here, and all this stuff is just all happening, and it does have. It is topical, but it's all thrown together in this big frog in a blender thing.
Yeah, it really does too. And what's fun about that is too with these characters, like there's times you're not sure what their exact agenda is. But I love Connery when he's talking to his editor, his boss, and he's like, we paid for Nixon, we paid for this, we paid this much for this. Like he's listing it off. And it's like, Jesus Christ.
Very matter of fact. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's all the things that we suspected all along.
Yeah.
And it's gone into full-blown cynicism and I told you so kind of thing. So yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, and it's also horrifying at the same time. So, which is good satire.
The only thing I regret about this movie is I wish they would have waited just a couple years and they could have said something else and added it in there.
No, I mean, forget about it. The 80s were full of this kind of intrigue and confusion as well. You know, you had Iran-Contra.
Yeah, I was about to mention.
This other crazy stuff going on. So, yeah, absolutely.
John DeLorean.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, incredible stuff going on, and it continues. You know,
It was interesting because this comes at the beginning of the 80s.
Yes,
as Jules said, you know, wait a few years, I'll have even more to talk about.
Yes, you could have a 3-hour epic, or a sequel.
Yeah,
but that's sort of what I thought too when they were going out the door. I'm thinking they're gonna follow this movie up. It's funny enough to follow up with, but no, they don't.
No, I think Brooks said what he wanted to say, and
it was either a very misunderstood film or a very understood film, one or the other. It got terrible reviews. It was really savaged by the critics. I think unfairly. I think the critics were done with 70s cynicism. That they had done their part, and now it's all chariots of fire and that sort of thing. Is what they wanted to see.
In the shining city on a hill of Reagan and all of that sort of thing. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Just if they had waited until the end of Reagan's first term, I wonder if this movie would have felt different.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
Quite possibly. Yeah.
Yeah, but when they were making this, they were probably shooting it in 81. So Reagan had just taken office,
right,
and no one really knew what to make.
No, it was more about the Carter era and the Nixon era than it was anything else at that point. So, yeah.
Well, they do mention Kennedy too. I was not expecting that out of this movie, and it's like, oh shit.
No, they're very. They're very close to the top layer of skin here in a lot of places. There's definitely that going on.
And that's too where it's almost like they're not quite literally like turning to the camera, talking to the audience. Like you mentioned stuntman, Pattrick.
Yeah.
But I feel that moment where Connery's talking about how much they paid for this and that's where it felt like stuntman to me the most.
Yes. And he has a bit of narrative that's thrown in every once in a while that's talking to the audience in a lot of ways as well. So, yeah, you do get that connection there.
Yeah, definitely. Which makes it fun, too.
Absolutely. It's a travel log. It's his travel log. He keeps reminding us of that, even though all this other crazy stuff is going on.
What's you guys' favorite scene?
Oh, Lord.
Connery has a monologue towards the end where he's talking to a screen. He's talking to a kid who's been dismembered, and he's just going on and on about the corrupt nature of the media and how it's just meant to sell things.
Yes.
And that news, in networks fashion, news has become subordinate to that. And when was the last time or the first time you ever saw Connery give a monologue? Much less give a monologue like this that's so contemporary, political, angry, polarized. And I love that.
Yeah,
I really love that.
I think you were right when you said earlier that he really enjoyed that. I think that was something different for him to be able to do that.
It's like, I get to act?
Yes.
Yes, Sean, you get to act.
Soliloquy,
Yeah.
Cool stuff. I actually liked the whole presidential thing where is he or is he going to resign or is he going to do that leads up to this whole thing like, thank God we're not going to, blow up the world. And then all of a sudden the world blows up and then you find out it's a model. They're just, it's surreal at that point. I love that part because it really takes you to the absolute outer limits of this crazy world that it starts to crack through reality, really crack through it.
Jewel, did you check out what this director has also done?
No, I did not. But before I
should look it up.
I will.
You should.
I will say this, that my favorite is at the ending when every character is like getting to chime in, and Henry Silva's like, but I have the bombs that are right here.
Yeah.
That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm glad you guys enjoyed this movie. That's a nice
absolutely.
thing.
And the whole shtick where he just opens the thing up and he goes, and he's talking about something else, and he's click, click, and he's snapping the wires off, and they're just talking about something else. It's like, well, that was good. Closes the case, walks off with it, yeah, that's again, that's part of almost cracking the absurdity, and is almost cracking reality at that point. And that scene too is very sort of Strange Love. It's just out there.
Yeah. I was looking up what the director
Brooks,
did.
yeah, he's done some. I'll one movie, Blackboard Jungle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that I've seen.
Yeah.
Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Also an accomplished writer, of course.
Jewel, what are you looking at?
He directed an episode of WWE Raw. One episode.
Of course, that's what you go to. That's what you go to, Joel.
Well, I just saw. I'm scrolling down.
That was during his alcoholic period. Move away.
Perfect.
Oh, Jesus. Let's see. Shakedown. Terror on Highway 91. Off Limits. Spencer for Hire TV series. One episode. The Hidden. Director.
Spencer was one of my favorite television shows of that era, the late 80s.
There was a British version with Maggie Smith called Spinster for Hire.
Spinster for Hire. I can't believe that. Smart mouth hag solves mysteries.
He did 9 episodes.
We did a lot more than TV.
He was also an actor too. So
he had a little bit of acting. Yeah, he didn't do a tremendous amount, I don't think, but yeah, he did. He appeared in some of his own films, as a matter of fact, occasionally.
A talented man, Richard Brooks.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. Okay. There we go.
His long career with the Muppets. Far Out Space Nuts, of course. The most political episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. He's uncredited as a writer for The Killers, Blackboard Jungle. You guys talked about The Last Hunt. Elmer Gantry. I've seen that great movie.
Yes, this is a fine movie.
It is. It's a serious. It's an AFI rated movie.
The Professionals. Fun movie. In Cold Blood.
Another AFI rated movie. Yeah.
Bite the Bullet. Wrong is Right. Fever Pitch. Looking for Mr. Goodbar.
Looking for Mr. Goodbar.
Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Great movie.
Pretty amazing career.
Yeah.
And a great variety of tone and theme.
Yeah, sorry. When I typed in Richard Brooks, I accidentally clicked on the wrong person. So I apologize for
that's
fine.
So Richard Brooks, the guy who directed this movie, did not do an episode of Raw. That was another.
I didn't think so. This is a very odd moment in his
like
life.
I said, it would have had to been the alcoholic period. When he was going by the name of George Spelvin.
George Spelvin. George Spelvin and Alan Smithy needed to work more together.
Absolutely. I mean, George keeps doing Clue, not Clue. I'm sorry. Keeps doing what is the two-hander?
Sleuth?
Yes.
Yeah.
George keeps doing Sleuth.
His most revolutionary production of that, though, was as a one-man show.
Uh,
I don't know how he pulled it off, but
Talking out of both sides of his mouth here
yes.
with a Muppet on the.
Favorite character in this movie?
Patrick Gale. Yeah, Sean Connery's.
Yes, absolutely.
I love Connery's. I'm gonna go Henry Silva's. He's just so fun. When he's on screen, he's fun.
He's hilarious.
He's
He
wonderful.
is hilarious.
And it's nice to see him be able to have fun
Yeah.
with it, because you can tell he's a man who had a tremendous sense of humor. And you know, and again, that's I keep coming back to the execrable Megaforce.
Right.
And he's having a ball in that one.
Yeah.
I like how they take off the guy on the CIA, who's the head of the CIA. They take off his glasses. They're like, this isn't wired, is it? And then his watch is wired and shit.
Sure, yes, the button, and it's great spy tech.
Yeah.
It's like Jesus. Probably every place of this guy's body, like his shoes are probably tapped.
Oh, absolutely.
Who knows?
That's the idea that you're supposed to get, that he's literally wired for sound.
Yeah. It's funny too, because when Saxon's character appears and ends up saving Connery's character's ass, I wasn't expecting Saxon's character to be the one appearing. I was expecting somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so it was like a shock a bit there. I like how they threw that in there.
Yeah.
It's a vastly unpredictable movie.
It is. That's probably the strange bedfellows moment of the entire film.
Yeah.
Although it's pretty strange, but he's got some pretty strange bedfellows throughout the film. But that's probably the shocking one.
I wasn't expecting them to kill off the king with the camera, and it's like that was pretty neat how they did that. Like for just an effect standpoint, and part of their tying in their plot, because the president. Because it's before the president says get him. It's like, well, wait, they already somebody already got it.
Yeah.
It's like the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing.
Oh yeah, the president's a little behind.
Yeah.
In certain scenarios, he's just a little behind. So all this stuff is swirling around him the same way that it's swirling around us. So
I kept waiting for like the joke of like them maybe taking out the guy who who am I thinking of? From Naked Gun, Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah.
I kept waiting for like this, like them having like a sniper and then a sniper rifle, and then them get a call. Don't take the shot. Don't take the shot.
Right.
It's like why? What?
Yeah.
That's what I kept waiting for in this movie, and it didn't happen. But
it's so nice in this period to see Leslie Nielsen play straight parts.
Yeah,
because he's very good.
His entire career up until about 1970, whenever they made Airplane, 78, 79, was straight drama. I mean, he was played villains and heroes and all that sort of thing.
Captain of the Poseidon.
Right,
and the Poseidon Adventure.
And he was what was the science fiction movie back in the late 50s? He was in
Forbidden Planet.
Forbidden Planet.
He is Captain Kirk.
Yes, he was.
Which is basically just a model for Star Trek.
Frodo Kirk. Yeah.
Yeah.
And with Robbie the Robot and all of that. Yeah. Yeah. So Nielsen really didn't get into humor until Airplane, and then of course they did the Naked Gun thing and all of that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, right.
And even after that, I mean, this is after Airplane, and so's Creep Show.
Yes, it is. It is. And Creep Show. Oh, he's such a bastard in Creep.
He's chilling in that. He really is.
Yeah.
Where he buries the people in the sand.
Yeah, Ted Danson is in that.
Yeah.
Gonna get you, Richard.
Yeah.
Also, too, he plays the cop in Prom Night, the original Prom Night.
Mm-hmm.
So, with Jamie Lee Curtis, who was in a ton of slashers after Halloween.
Oh my God, yes. I mean, you make hay, you know. And
Terror Train.
You can say, "Oh, I don't want to do that anymore."
Yeah.
Terror Train is my favorite because it has one of the best Western stars, and he stands toe to toe with Jamie Lee Curtis. They hold up together as great chemistry.
Who's it? Ben Johnson? Who?
Yeah, Ben Johnson.
Yeah, Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
Ben Johnson, you know, was a real cowboy.
Yep. He was in Rodeo.
Yeah.
Me and Butch discussed that when we did the Wild Bunch. Great. So, shout out to
Ben
Butch.
Johnson and G.D. Spradlin, just a few years after this, were in La Cage aux Folles on Broadway, and were just magnificent together.
I'm sure they were.
Can you imagine the worst cast?
Those they wore.
My favorite worst cast for La Cage aux Folles would be oh God, Tommy Lee Jones and Sam Elliott. Look over there.
I don't know. David Ogden Stiers might be good in that too.
But David would do it. David would commit.
I know, because David was gay, and he would have no problem doing it. But
yeah.
I think if he played it as Winchester, it would go off as all time.
Winchester's such a great character.
It is.
It really is. I still say that MASH 2.0 actually improved on MASH in a lot of ways.
No doubt. I mean, the character development of the characters that were there before was improved as well.
Yes.
And the new characters all work. I mean, Honeycutt, Winchester, Potter.
Yeah.
All just fit right in like nothing happened.
Really did. This guy, Larry Gelbart, what a genius that guy.
Yeah. It was the writing really made it possible for those actors to just kind of fit. And
it was nice to see the actor who played Potter finally get a role that he wasn't just playing a sidekick to somebody else.
Oh God, Harry Morgan got to do so much on that show.
He had a film career that went back to the 40s. And then, of course, it was the Dragnet thing, which is the sidekick. He was the sidekick for two versions of one version of Dragnet, the 60s version of Dragnet. And everybody identified because he was the straight guy with a stiff upper lip who never deviated from, it's our duty, and all that sort of thing. So nobody at that point thought of him as an actor with any kind of emotional range.
I really loved how Potter was able to have such a sense of command over the 407, legitimate leadership, and yet knew exactly who he was leading and what they needed every step of the way, because that character could have been such a two-dimensional figure, and it never
was.
Sherman Potter could always surprise you. Right. And yet when you would step back, you would think, no, there's nothing surprising about that at all. That was the logical thing for the commander of the 4077 to do.
But he also allowed himself to be affected by what was happening around him.
Hell yeah. As a human would.
Yeah.
God, what a great performance. You can keep Harry. I'll take Sherman.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with that.
So there we go.
What do you guys think? What do you guys what do you guys give this movie? 1 out of 10.
I actually give it an 8 because
I give it an 8 too.
I love its political satire and all of the incredible topics that it actually covers pretty well.
Yeah.
It is confusing at times and massively so at times, but it's still worthy of what it's trying to do, I think.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and give this a 10. This was a fun movie.
It was a great film. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a lot of
fun.
For you. You will sit back and, like, whoever goes and watches, you will sit back and just laugh at some of the crazy shit they do. And then when they're talking, it's like, really?
Yeah, you'll be affected and entertained.
Yeah, it's like
intellectually affected, mostly, sometimes emotionally affected, but entertained. It's interesting. It might not be coherent all the time, but it's interesting all the time.
It is. It is.
What movie would you guys like to do next?
Alan, what your turn in all of this.
Let me think for just a. Have you guys done Shawshank Redemption?
No.
No, it's a great movie.
Mm-hmm. Let's do that.
Let's do Shawshank.
Let's do something that is typically great. And then we can return to something that's a little offbeat again.
I have a suggestion for the one after that to follow it up. And it's a type of movie we've never done. A documentary called In the Shadow of the Moon, which is Ron Howard's documentary about the Apollo astronauts.
Yes.
And it's a great film.
I am a big Apollo guy. So
me too. In fact, I've got the replica Speedy on right now. I have the Pagani design.
Awesome.
The Swatch has done a really lousy one that's overpriced, and this is about $100.
Mm-hmm.
And is a really, really, this is the third version of it they've done, and they keep improving it a little bit every time. And so this is my Apollo fanboyism.
Very cool. Yeah, when I was a kid, I had the Saturn V with the capsule on top of it, and it was like one of those the large scale Aurora models.
Wow.
It had like a lunar lander inside the capsule and the whole 9 yards.
I've seen a Saturn V on its side in Huntsville.
They're enormous.
It's so impressive.
They're terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was the largest controlled explosion I think humans have ever created.
It is. I think there's one now that's slightly larger than that they've actually touched off. But it's the Saturn V is just an incredible accomplishment. It's the work of hundreds of thousands of people. Some of the greatest physicists and mathematicians and astrophysicists that the world ever produced. Some of the ballsiest test pilots ever that you will ever see. Because
one of my favorite Apollo astronaut comments, it might have been Gene Cernan, I don't remember, or it sounds like something Alan Bean would have said. But they said, "What were you thinking when you're sitting in the capsule and the countdown was about to happen? You know this. What were you thinking?" And he said, "You know what I was thinking? I was thinking that every switch, wire, dial, bolt, everything that surrounded me that was supposed to, preserve my life, so incredibly far from Earth, was provided by the lowest bidder."
Yeah, I bet.
Oh God, what a feeling at that moment. Well, everything you're relying on is provided by the lowest bidder.
And I loved Armstrong's response when the people said, "What was it like?" And he said it was incredibly loud. It was really loud.
To be in to go up. My God, it had to be.
Yeah. At that point, they'd all those guys had been on top of one of those rockets, not the Saturn V, but they'd been on top of Mercury rockets.
It reminds me of my favorite absurd moment in a Bond film that no one ever comments on, and it's in You Only Live Twice, when Connery is in the spacesuit. He's got the air conditioning unit with him, and he's about to step into the capsule.
Right.
When Blofeld notices something off and says, "Hey, get that guy out of line." Because I kind of think Bond must have thought, that is the luckiest moment of my cover being blown ever. Because what the hell would I have done? Yes, I'm a pilot, but I'm not an astronaut.
Right.
What the hell would I have done if I had gotten sealed in this thing and it had gone up? What was I supposed to do?
Yeah, really.
This isn't Little Nelly.
That's right. Yeah, he's probably thinking, let's see, what frequency is MI6 again?
Oh my God! Yeah, you only live twice. Get that guy out of there.
Yeah. Oh, thank goodness! Now I only have to fight against 8 homicidal maniac henchmen, instead of a rocket.
Sure, thank God I can handle the ninjas. That's okay.
I got one for you. I was watching Friday the 13th movies today, and I was watching Friday the 13th Part 7, where Jason just appears out of nowhere all over the place. And my nephew walks in. He's watching, and he goes, "How'd that guy just appear like that?" I'm like, "Movie magic, son."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's my greatest sort of meta cinema quote was off stage during the filming of Star Trek Insurrection. and they film a lot of it in a cave. Hollywood cave is cave, and some wiseacre thought he was going to derail the whole thing by asking the DP, "So where's the light coming from?" And the DP said, "Same place the music is coming from."
Just get out of my face.
Yeah, it's a movie.
Absolutely. Speaking of Apollo, have you seen First Man?
No, I haven't. Is it Ryan Gosling?
It is.
As Neil Armstrong?
It's wonderfully cast. It is as much an emotional journey as it is sort of a biographical journey of him going from the Mercury program to Apollo and disaster that happens with Apollo 1 and through that sort of stuff. And I liked it, and it's his emotional landscape. I think Gosling did a really good job with Armstrong, because Armstrong's emotional landscape was so reserved, so controlled, which it needed to be. It needed to be. He was the perfect guy to do what had to be done. That another person might have aborted that mission because, oops, we need to take control of this craft, or we're going to crash into.
This is during the landing.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was, incredible. And he'd already been through several life challenging events as a test pilot, and also when
the Gemini, didn't his Gemini go nuts for a while?
Yeah, that was 6 and 7, I think. The Aegina, once they got docked, when they were testing the docking of that whole thing, they got into a spin. Then they ejected the Aegina, thinking it was causing it. It got worse. I
think Ed White was with him on that
Sheridan one. That was in the capsule with him. I can't remember.
I thought it might have been Gene Cernan or Ed White. It was one or the other.
Yeah, I think it was Cernan. And he passed out, and Armstrong did not pass out. And this whole thing, they do this in First Man, where they show them going through the training, the gyroscopic training and all that sort of thing, which is, what ends up happening to them on that craft. And he somehow managed to get that thing it was in a tight spin. I mean, it was going shoo, 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 like that. And somehow he got it out of there before he passed out.
If you ever want to read something that will really challenge your views on this person as a writer, one of the best Apollo pieces of appreciation is an essay ever written. You're gonna kill me for this. It was written by Ayn Rand. She wrote a beautiful pro-astronaut, pro-Apollo 11, pro-knowledge, pro-science essay. And it's in the collection Voice of Reason.
Because the astronauts were the closest thing to, when that program reached its peak, were the closest thing to the realization of the John Galt type character in his mind, I think.
Yeah. It's a beautiful piece. I mean, when I kind of slipped into my objectivist phase, the gateway drug was that Apollo essay, because it just said everything I'd been thinking about the space program for so long, because that was in the late 80s when it had just sort of fallen into irrelevancy.
Right. Yeah. And it had, because of, they had a couple of shuttle disasters, or one shuttle disaster by the late 80s and another one early 90s.
It's one of those broken clock is right twice a day moments. She has another good essay on racism that's excellent.
Yeah.
Just anti-racism essay that has.
Ayn Rand was not an unintelligent person. She just, was also a very bitter person whose ideology kind of, a vein of bitterness ran through that ideology of objectivism for her.
A lot of PTSD from what she went through as a kid, seeing her friends' parents shot during the revolution, and just not wanting that to happen again.
Sure, yeah. I think her family was on the low end of the aristocracy before the revolution, I think, or at least they were well-off people.
They were okay.
Yeah.
They were okay. I think her dad was maybe a pharmacist or something. It wasn't that high up, but
Professional.
yeah.
I know that was the great source of her bitterness and why she thought that collectivism was a great evil and all of that sort of thing, you know.
And if you'd seen it manifested only like that,
of course it is a great evil manifested like that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, it's an interesting essay. It's a good pro space program essay. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. All right, guys. Links to Alan Glant's YouTube channel is going to be in the description box. Link to Pattrick McCray's Dark Shadows Daybook of Balance is going to be in the description box. I'll see you guys tomorrow night. God bless.
Take care.
Cool. Bye. Tomorrow night.